In this video, you want to understand how to learn the concept of solving a quadratic equation, right? So this is exactly what we call a quadratic equation. But this is just one example. Okay, so there are three ways in solving this quadratic equation, maybe at the high school level, right? So here the first one is by factorize. So you are going to factorize the factors here, and then maybe two is by using the quadratic formula, right? So quadratic formula, or maybe in some cases that is what we call it the almighty formula, right? And then finally maybe by completing of squares, right? So these are the three ways you can solve this problem. But here in this video, we are solely going to focus on factorization. So if you want to know about the quadratic formula or the almighty formula and the completed of the square, make sure that you subscribe to the channel for more lesson on this. Okay, now the idea is that if you have something that goes like this, maybe x plus 1 equal to 0, this is somehow very easy and simple to solve. Is that okay? So you subtract 1 from both sides of the equation. So here we'll give us x is equal to -1, right? So that is the answer. So here we want to bring this down. We want to solve this quadratic down to the point that we are going to have something we already know how to solve, right? That is the key term here. So that is why we need to factorize, or that is the key word. So you are going to factorize this thing to go into what this method. Is that okay? That we can easily what solve. Is that okay? So that is the most important thing. So how do you do that? So here is the step. The first step here is that you have to identify the values that is attached to each term. So in quadratic, you have three different terms. So let's say you have three different people here. So here's the first person, second, and the third, right? So we are going to locate some people, call them by what A, right? A, B, and then finally you have C, right? So these are just the numbers out of the quadratic equation given to you. So you have our A to be the number that is attached, or a friend of the x square. Maybe this, sometimes this variable can change. It can be a square, it can be y square, it can be anything, right? But in this case, the a is always the number that is close to the squared here, right? So here in this case you have the x square. So a here, a is what 1, right? So it's the number that is attached to the x square, and then a b is the one that is attached to the x. So in this case that is 4, and then the c is the one alone, right, without any variable. So here will be equal to 3 in this case. Is that okay? You have to make sure that you always identify these people down. That is the step. So where are we heading towards? We are heading towards this point, right? So we want to factor out. We want to have a factorization out of this quadratic equation so that we can easily solve it by this method. This is what we know, right? So let's bring this thing down. Now your first step here is to have AC. So what I mean by the AC here is that it is not an air conditioning, but here mathematically, so you have to have the AC, meaning that A multiplied by C. So in this case here, we are going to have A multiplied by the C. So that is 1 multiplied by what? 3. That is equal to 3. And then you have your B down. So in this case, B is equal to 4. Right? So these are the two things that we are going to have. Is that okay? If you have the AC down, so the next step is to find the factors of what AC. Is that okay? So factors of what? This AC. So the AC, when you multiply, you have the AC to be what? To be 3. So factors of the A3 means that the two numbers that we multiply, we are going to have the answer. In this case, you have 3. So those are the factors of the AC are 1 and then what? And a 3. Is that okay? So these are the two factors that we are having out of this answer. Maybe it may vary, depends on the equation that we are having, right? Is that okay? But here in this point here, you have to have the factors of the AC, which is 3. So 3 here is the factors of the 3 are 1 and 3. So if you have the factors, what I would advise you to do is that we need a positive and a negative factors, right? So positive and negative 1, as well as positive and negative for 3 of all the factors. There's a reason why we need the negative and the positive of the factors that we had, right? Now, once we have the positive and the negative factors out of this AC, this answer here, that we are going to pick any of the two factors. So if I want to rewrite these factors, I have a negative one, right? So let me use the red one. So I have a negative one, positive one, and then negative for 3, and then what positive what positive 3, right? So in this case 3. So these are the four factors that we are having. Is that okay? So these are the four factors that we are having out of this. So out of these four factors, we are going to pick two of them, right? So we are going to pick any of these two factors. Here is the condition. If you pick the two factors here, is that if you multiply, right? If you multiply those two factors that we are going to have, you have to have the answer of for the AC in this case, which is 3, right? And then if you ask this same two factors that you pick, you have the answer B. Is that okay? So let's demonstrate that. If I go for negative 1 and negative positive 1, so it means that negative 1, let's use a different pen here. So if you have a negative 1, right? So negative 1 multiplied by 1, the answer here should be negative 1, right? Which is not the same as this 3. Is that okay? So if you pick any of the two factors, if you multiply, you should have your 3 down. The answer here, the answer to the AC, right? So which factors do you think? I guess you should pause the video and come back and comment. Maybe obviously someone can say that 3 and 1, right? So 3 and 1. So these two factors is that if you multiply 3 and 1, maybe 1 multiplied by 3, the answer here should be equal to what? Equal to 3. Exactly what we are having here, right? So exactly what we are having, this 3. Is that okay? That is what we are having. And then if you add the same factors, right? So if you add the same factors here, so these are the factors that we have. So if you add that same factors, right? So I choose out 1 and 3. So if you add them 1 and then plus 3 here, if you add that same factors, in this case 1 plus 3 should be equal to 4. Is that okay? So this is the condition. You just need to, if you process this in for just some few seconds, you'll be okay, right? So you'll be okay. Now, that is the key term here. So you have to find the factors of the AC. So your first step is to find the factors of the AC, right? So the AC in this case was 3. So after finding the factors of those 3, the answer to the AC. So if you have that, just pick any of the two factors, right? So there's a condition attached to that. If you pick the two factors, that should tell you that if I multiply those two factors that I'm picking, I should have the AC, right? I should have the AC, which is 3. And then if you add that same factors, you cannot go for different factors. So the one that you choose from this portion here should be the same people that you are going to choose in terms of the addition. So the key here is that 1, you have to choose the factors. If you multiply, you should have the answer to this. And then if you add them, that one should give you the answer to the B. Is that okay? Okay, so perfect. Once we have that, we know that the factors that we are looking for are 1 and and 3. Is that okay? So these are the two factors that we are going to use here. Now, if you have these two, the next one is that if you have these two people here, then you are going to use these two people to replace only the B, right? So only the B here. So what is the value of the B here? B is 4. Is that okay? So we are going to use these two factors here to replace the value of the B in our equation. So that one will help us to break this quadratic equation down into the simple form as we saw at the beginning, right? So the next one is to use these factors to replace the B. Is that okay? So in replacing the B here, we are going to have, so let's replace the value of the B by the factor. So we are just replacing the B here. So B, which is 4 here, by these factors, right? So that tells you that if we add these two people, it should give you the number that is up for the B, right? So the one close to the X. So now we are replacing that. So remember here we have what X squared here already. We are not doing anything to that. And then plus what? The first factor, which is the 1. So remember the B is a friend of X. So 1X here in some case, that should be X, right? So if you understand that, that should give us what X, and then plus what? The next factor, which is the 3x. So these are the two people that we are replacing by the b. Is that okay? And then we have our 3 here. So positive 3, everything equal to 0. So once you find the factors, the only thing that you can do is to replace those factors by the b. Right, so here this is where the word factorization comes in. So here we are going to group that. So we have x squared plus x. This one will just give us and then plus 3s and then plus 3. Everything should be equal to 0. Is that okay? So grouping this thing in pairs, you have that, and then this one and this. Right, so here we are going to factorize. So you factor the common guys out here. So you have the x here out, and then we are going to have x and then plus 1, right, for this bracket. Look at the trick here. So here we are going to have the 3 out, positive 3 out. You have the x plus 1. Now pay a close attention here. So the key here is that you always have to make sure that the numbers or the members in the bracket are always the same in what in factorization. Is okay if you factor out in the situation whereby the number that we had here in one bracket is different from the number in the second bracket, then there's something wrong with your factorization. So what are we going to do here? So our next step here is to group this one and this one into one house, so one bracket here. So you have the x and the plus 3 into one bracket, and then we are repeating one of these bracket, that is the x plus 1. That is the reason why this and this has to be the same. So in order for you to group only one bracket, right, so everything is equal to. So exactly this is where we are heading towards to, right? So this is our target here. So here we can easily solve these two people one by one. So here you have the x plus 1. So that was where I say we are heading towards. So you have the x plus 1 plus 3 equal to 0. This means that our x is equal to negative 3, right? So subtract 3 from both sides of the equation. Or we had the second bracket to be x plus 1 equal to 0. So meaning that our x is equal to negative 1. So these are the two answers of the quadratic equation. Of course, they are the root of the quadratic equation. So this is how simple you solve the quadratic equation by a factorization. And if you want to know how to solve the quadratic by the almighty formula, once again, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, right? Or maybe by completing. Let me hear from you in the comment section which one you want to see next in our next video.